What happens in the wake of a city's fall when civilians flee en masse, hospitals are destroyed, and the bodies of women become battlefields in themselves? In the past few weeks, we have seen such a devastating turns in Fashir, the capital of North Darfur in Sudan, where the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, seized control on 26 October 2025. More than 36,000 people were reported to have fled the surrounding areas into the town of Tawila, which already shelters over 650,000 displaced persons. The reports from those fleeing are chilling. Killings in the streets, systematic rape of women, disappearance of children, entire communities uprooted. Suddenly, the world's attention has been drawn back to the conflict in Sudan, and for good reason. Independent UN experts, human rights monitors, and aid agencies are now issuing urgent warnings. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights describes a systematic and brutal campaign against women and girls in displacement camps, including abductions, sexual violence, and killings. In particular, the RSF have been named in the recent reports by Amnesty International for carrying out gang rapes, sexual slavery, forced marriage, and even child rape, all with the objective not just of war, but of terrorizing and displacing entire communities. The mountain of fresh documentation, including survivor testimonies, satellite imagery, and aid worker evacuation, means the Sudan crisis can no longer quietly slip off the global agenda. To understand how we arrived here, we need to rewind to April 15, 2023. That day marked the explosion of armed conflict between Sudan's National Army, the Sudanese Armed Forces, and the RSF, a force born of the Janjaweed militias of Darfur. The fight was ostensibly about power, control of the state, integration of paramilitary forces into the national system, influence over Sudan's rich resources, and the future political order. Within days, the fighting spread far beyond Khartoum. Regions such as Darfur, Kordofan, and the east became the theatre of war. The conflict immediately took on a civilian face. Hospitals bombed, markets shelled, entire towns besieged, millions uprooted. Reports emerged of mass atrocities, including ethnic-based killings, forced displacement, and widespread sexual violence. Within the first year, the humanitarian toll was already overwhelming. Over 1 million people were displaced inside and outside Sudan. The country faced what the UN called the biggest displacement crisis since Syria. Services collapsed, including healthcare, water, sanitation, and education. Women and girls in particular were pushed to the front lines of suffering. UN Women estimated over 12 million people are at risk of gender-based violence. Displaced women outnumber men among the displaced, and in 2024 alone, demand for gender-based violence services rose by nearly 300%. But the scale of the abuse has only escalated. UN fact-finding missions found victims of sexual violence in the conflict ranging from ages 8 to 75, often in RSF-held areas. Most recently, in South Darfur alone between January and March 2025, the medical charity Medicine Sans Frontiers treated 659 survivors of sexual violence, more than two-thirds of them raped. The effects on civilians are staggering. In one region, White Nile State, RSF-led attacks left between 300 and 433 civilians dead in villages in mid-February 2025. Markets, supposed place of safety and commerce, have become kill zones. The widely reported attack on Sebrian market in Omdurman by the RSF on 1st February 2025 killed at least 54 people and wounded more than 150. Hospitals are not spared. On 24 January 2025, a drone strike on the Saudi maternal teaching hospital in Fashir killed at least 70 people, among them mothers and children. Food insecurity is at record levels. In some areas, famine has been declared or is imminent. Displaced families lived in camps or makeshift settlements exposed to violence, neglect, and a lack of protection. For the many women and girls trapped in these scenarios, daily life is a battleground. No school, no safe water, no reliable food, no medical care, and on top of that, the threat of sexual violence at any moment. Why has the global spotlight shifted now? Because the evidence has surged. The new wave of reports from international human rights bodies, UN agencies, and independent monitors has made the atrocities harder to dismiss. Thousands of sexual violence victims, hundreds of thousands displaced, multiple credible mass killings documented, and the strategic fall of key cities such as Fashir have framed the conflict not just as a civil war but as one bearing the hallmarks of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Aid access is collapsing, donor fatigue is setting in, yet the human need is accelerating. This dual pressure of collapsing humanitarian space and mounting evidence of targeted violence has forced renewed focus. The moment now demands urgent attention. Protection of civilians has to be at the top of the agenda. Safe corridors, humanitarian access, evacuation of wounded, and structural support for survivors of sexual violence through medical care, psychosocial services, legal aid, and safe shelter. Food, water, shelter, and education must not be treated as secondary. And crucially, accountability. Commanders and foot soldiers alike must know that impunity will not hold. What began as a struggle for control between military and paramilitary in Sudan has spiraled into one of the worst humanitarian catastrophes of our era. Women and girls are not just incidental victims, they are specifically targeted, raped, abducted, forced, starved, and silent. The world now knows the scale of the suffering, and the urgency to act has never been clearer. For more explainers, subscribe to DawnNews English.